Welcome to SHOWstudio's Fashion Radio, the podcast video series exploring the remarkable relationship between fashion and music. Every week we'll be joined by fashion's biggest names and the talent of tomorrow as they share their 10 life-defining tunes and the stories behind them. I'm your host, DJ Fat Tony, and today I'm joined by a technological trailblazer and the reason we're all here. The founder and director of SHOWstudio, he's been pushing the boundaries of fashion, image making, as a pioneer of state-of-the-art technology, a man that knows better than anyone else how important fashion is to music and music is to fashion. The creative visionary behind the album covers for Dior, Lady Gaga, Gwen Stefani, Massive Attack, Travis Scott, and so many more. It's none other than the magnificent Nick Knight. Hi, I'm DJ Fat Tony, and welcome to Fashion Radio on SHOWstudio. And today's guest is the gaffer himself, the man from upstairs. If anyone's ever been in SHOWstudio, you'll know that you see this person like a fleeting ghost. For at least 1 minute and a handshake, it's Nick Knight.
Yep, that's how I like to be perceived. Thank you.
I mean, I've done loads of stuff with you in the past, and you glide down the stairs.
I do glide.
You do glide, and it's almost like you're on this little puff of smoke, and you come, you do the magic handshake, you say hi, and
That's
then
magic. I'm glad you think it's magic.
it is a magic handshake, and then it's a reassuring handshake.
Yes,
because you let us know that you're here, you're overseeing it.
Exactly.
We're all, and it kind
back
of
up into my cloud.
And you go back up to the heavens, and then if we're lucky, we might see you again at some point through the day. If we're lucky, and it is luck.
I'm not going to survive this. I can tell. You're just being nice, but
no, it's good. You know, it's the fact that you do glide down the stairs kind of gives it like this air of magic, which is what SHOWstudio is about. Yes. There has always been an air of magic to SHOWstudio. Good. Without blowing that puff of smoke up your arse. It's true. SHOWstudio has this air of magic. That's why people love to work with SHOWstudio. You know, if it's on SHOWstudio, it's got quality attached to it. Do you get what I mean? It's not like, it's not a bottom shelf number. It's always a top shelf. And, you know, and that's not as in, you know, where they used to keep the porn mags.
No, indeed not.
Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about Fashion Radio and what we're doing.
Yeah.
So this is about incorporating fashion into music and music into fashion. Because the two of them, without each other, in my eyes and my beliefs, I think that, you know, without music, you really wouldn't have so many tribes within fashion throughout the years. And that's what I want to talk to you about today.
Right, okay. Well, that's a good place to start.
Uh-huh.
I mean, for me, I guess if you're looking at, and the tribal thing's a very good note on it, I was trying to think where to start on this. And in a way, it's when you get your sense of self. Mm-hmm. So your own sort of how you want people to see you. I think throughout our teens, I don't know if it was the same with you, but certainly with me, I tried different characters, different people, different looks to see what I felt at ease with and what I liked the look of. And weirdly, as it may seem now, skinheadism was where I sort of settled. And that led on to soul music, that led on to northern soul, that led on to R&B, et cetera, because the reason I liked skinheads was the way they looked and the music they listened to. So that was my sort of way into it, which is why I've chosen as my first track, a track by Prince Buster called Al Capone.
I used to wake up to that. My elder brother Kevin, he was a skinhead for many years. Yeah. And I was obsessed by skinheads.
Right.
And I think I was obsessed by them. It was a very tough and scary image. Yeah. You know, they had a really bad name. Yeah. Skinheads, you know, if someone was a skinhead, that meant they were trouble. And I've always been drawn to trouble, even from a very young age. And when my brother and all his skinhead mates used to come around to my mum's house.
Elder brother, young brother?
My older brother.
Yeah.
There's like 5. So I'm 57, so he's now 63.
Yeah, my age.
So, yeah, your age. So he, you know, it was right at the beginning of the skinheads before it went mainstream and become, you know, madness and everything else that came from it.
That's
you know,
a different moment.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And, you know, so I used to wake up to this track being played in our house. Yeah. You know, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, it's got a lot of good memories attached to it. What makes it your
thing?
Your first choice?
Weirdly, the same as you. My elder brother, actually. My elder brother, when I first I listened to it was kind of the beginning of the 1970s, and it was actually, we lived up in Cambridgeshire, so it was out in the fens, basically, and provincial skinheadism isn't quite the same as what it probably was in London or Liverpool or whatever, but whatever, it was what it was. And my brother's mate, Steve Agnew, I remember him really well, used to be so sharp. used to come around. I remember him coming around on a Sunday night once. He was on a scooter and he had a kind of, tonic jacket on and the pocket hanky was pinned in. And he was just such a sharp dresser and so hard. Where I used to live, there was a big council estate called the Oxmoor Estate, which was sort of London overspill kids because we're out in the countryside. And there's an expansion corridor from London, and you got sort of East End of London after the war, so it was shipped up this sort of expansion corridor. And so we had a huge estate called the Oxmoor Estate. Upon the Oxmoor Estate, there were lots of skinheads, and kind of a genuine London variety of skinheads. And they were, so just street savvy, so cool, so smart, so on it, etc., etc. For me, it was, as a kind of, 12, 13-year-old, it was just very impressive in the way that you kind of, fancy your brother's girlfriend and, you look up to your elder brother and all his mates. So it was very much a kind of in awe.
They were chic.
Yeah.
Because when people think of skinheads, they straight away think of bleached jeans and Dr. Martens and red braces. And it wasn't about that.
No, not at all.
It was really about the cut of the suits, the whole chicness of it, the loafers. All of that stuff was just like, it was the trouser length with the white socks showing and the loafer. It was just so chic.
Let me show you another little track. Desmond Dekker performing Israelites.
Incredible.
Weird. That was a weird time in the 1970s for music, because the main thing you could watch in the 1970s, I'm 64, so I'm actually 5, 6, 7 years older than you roughly, yeah? So the only thing you could watch really to get any sort of taste of music was Top of the Pops. Yeah. Which was being fronted by Jimmy Savile. So that was a kind of like, okay, what's going on here?
But everyone loved Jimmy then.
Everybody loved Jimmy then, apart from he looked like a weird freak. They'd have sort of, people on that show, like Sweet and stuff, and these people would have swastikas on their back. Yeah. They was like, oh, look, they've got a huge swastika on his back.
Do you think if the music, that ska wasn't around at that point, that Skinheads would have gone to what they did? Do you think that when we look back at history, with the swinging 60s, for instance, right? If you didn't have the Rolling Stones and you didn't have that stuff, would you have had that fashion? Yeah. Would you have had Mary Quant? Would you have had everything else that went with it to make that 60s look and that 60s fashion? The same with Skinheads, the same with mod, the same with punk, so on, so on, so on. It goes on. They went hand in hand. Music drove that fashion. Do you believe that?
Skinhead was a mixture of kind of dancehall fashion that young black kids were wearing in London. Yeah. And super sharp-looking young black kids. And, of course, the thing I was telling you, in the early 1970s, especially out near Cambridgeshire and Huntingdon, there were no black kids. No. So they were kind of like, we looked at black culture, like, whatever you saw on Top of the Pops of the Drifters or Delphonics.
Everyone was wearing flares and afros,
But you looked, you thought, they look fucking cool. They look
did.
So cool.
They still do. Yeah. When you look back at that stuff, you just think, wow. Yeah. That's fashion.
But they were a different world. There's no way you're going to see these people in the street in kind of Peterborough.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So there was a kind of real awe of black culture and black kids because they were the sharp. And if you ever came down to London, which most people didn't because you just didn't have the ability to, just seeing the black kids in London, it was such an eye-opener. And all those, the dance halls where you go, then you see them and it's just kind of, they look they could dance better. They look better. They're better style. The girls were interested in, it's kind of, So it was a real kind of, absolute awe for that side. But if you didn't have ska and you didn't have the dance halls and you didn't have the Rude Boys, no, it would have really not happened in the way it did. Because a lot of it is aping that. Not all of it, but a lot of it was aping that.
Before we move on from Skinheads, the one thing the one album cover out of all that Skinhead stuff that sticks in my mind, which I loved and I had on my wall, was the Specials album cover with all the pictures of the Skinhead gig, and all the Skinheads were in it, and there was like loads of Skinheads from Battersea in it and stuff like that. Yeah. I had it on my wall for many years when I was growing up, and I just was like in awe of it. Yeah, because it had everything. It was such a sexy look.
Yeah, but that's the revival. So
I know
the end of the 70s.
Yeah, I know.
So I was in the beginning. I was in the tail end of it. When I got back to Britain in 1970, and that was kind of the beginning. That was kind of the beginning of Suede Head and Smoothie.
Incredible.
So I was sort of catching the tail end of it, but then it went. It disappeared into glam rock, and then reappeared sort of I don't know, about 76, you started seeing a few skinheads around. That's when I got back into it in 76.
So can I ask you,
Yeah.
since 76, have you always worn suits and a pocket chief? Because everything you described is the Nick Knight look.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's the thing. You weirdly, you get stuck in your experiences as a teenager.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about quite a lot recently that the things you experience as a teenager become very important for the rest of your life. It's almost like you're trying to work out who the hell you are, and you kind of think, oh, I know, and you settle on a whole bunch of values when you're kind of 15-year-old, and they don't go away. You don't suddenly change. Yeah, I tried other looks and tried other things, but nothing felt as genuine to me as that look.
Well, this is Nick Knight.
Yeah.
That look is you. If I was to see you in sweatpants and a hoodie, I probably would walk past you.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But you know what I'm saying to you? The sharpness of the suit and the way that you dress is Nick Knight, is SHOWstudio. This is the image of this, which kind of stems from them, which is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's a total direct link. I wear the clothes, basically versions of the clothes I was wearing in my teens. But, now they're Savile Row as opposed to kind of whatever you get your hands on.
Oh, shit, throw that in. Okay, your third choice, which I
used to
love.
work for Savile Row. The third choice.
Love this.
Thomas Crown Affair, there's a film, and the track's Windmills of Your Mind.
Amazing.
Again, goes back to completely what we're talking about. The influences you have and the sort of trying to form your self-image in terms of a fashion. It's Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
And Steve McQueen dressed impeccably.
So impeccably. It's unreal.
So, and Faye Dunaway, incredibly beautiful.
So is, but hang on. That's, so is Steve McQueen.
Yeah, no, but
I'm just saying.
Both of them incredibly
it's
beautiful.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So
when you find a film like that, when you're kind of at an impressionable age, it sort of sticks with you.
Yeah.
And that, I realised.
Did you have a crush on her?
I was 15. I didn't really have a crush on a Hollywood film star. I had a crush on the girl next door. She was more even vaguely. She wasn't, but she would have been more possible me ever meeting Faye Dunaway. At least I could meet the girl next door.
Yeah, I get that.
Disco. But,
I mean, I always had a crush on Steve McQueen.
Right.
And I knew full well I'd never meet him.
Right.
But, it was kind of like more of a fantasy thing than that. I mean, even to this day.
I actually probably not quite in the same way. I didn't have a crush on Steve McQueen, but admired him.
Yeah, right. Okay, because of the sharpness of the suits and the way. Yeah, right. Incredible.
But yeah, so that was a film that has stayed with me as kind of, that's how when you don't have to think about something, like, if somebody offers you a coffee or a tea, you don't think, which one do I like? You know which one you like.
I do.
Damn.
I'm a freak.
Example. If somebody offers you a Bovril or a Horlicks,
oh, yeah.
okay, so then you have to think, okay, which one do I like? But you know straight away. But it's that sort of thing that the elegance that's in Thomas Crown Affair is something I take as my, just kind of, if I'm looking for elegant, that's where I go to.
Do you think that watching that film at that age kind of gave you direction?
Yeah, I think it did. It also made it quite clear the power of music in a film, hence fashion films, because, those images of him in the glider and the song Windmills of Your Mind.
Yeah.
And then there's an incredible scene, which is him and her playing chess. And the soundtrack to that chess game is fantastic. I can't remember the composer, unfortunately. But the power of music, when it's connected to moving image, to moving to film, incredible. That's why we have SHOWstudio.
They go hand in hand. You need music to get the heart to beat at the right tempo, to go with the right pacing. And you need to lift people and take people on that journey, what you want to do with that collection. Yeah. And people really forget about that.
The model needs to also, on a fashion show, the model needs to walk in time to a beat.
1-2-2 to 1-2-4 is a perfect walking beat. Yeah.
All right, okay. So there you go. And it's the same for a fashion film. You need a beat that's going to drive you through the track,
100%.
Drive you through the film. Otherwise, a 2-minute film can seem like eternity without music.
100%.
And a great piece of music on a fashion film would just like whisk you through and you haven't even noticed. Because you just love it. So it's a really important thing. So I guess the reason to include Thomas Crown Affair, apart from the sort of sartorial part of it, and that's always what I wanted to look like and never quite achieved, but that's always what I wanted to look like. The sartorial part of it is super important, but it is actually the moment that I sort of realised that music and film are so inextricably linked.
You link certain tracks to that film and it sticks in your mind, certain tracks. As soon as you hear it, will take you straight to that point. A good one is American Cowboy. That film,
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
that track is just like...
What's the track on American Cowboy?
It's like going through the passages of my mind.
Yes.
Everybody's talking at
That's
me.
the one, yeah.
I can't hear a word they're saying. That track, yeah.
That track.
Let's move on to your personal favourite tracks. What do you listen to, Nick?
If I had to choose one track out of everything I've ever heard, it would be this. And it's sort of, post Skinhead for me. It's that kind of soul boy time where I started listening really to kind of just black music and, bands, too many to mention. But the one I got hooked on, and partly because of the lead singer, was Rufus and Chaka Khan.
Yeah.
Chaka Khan, when she was in Rufus, she was such an incredible looking woman. She was a Black Panther before she was a singer. Yeah. So like super political, but she has just the best voice.
Incredible.
It just lifts you up to the skies.
She still has.
Yeah.
She still has. I saw her about a year and a half ago.
Oh, really?
At a gig in Paris, and she just took the roof off of it.
Yeah.
And I also saw her in Brockwell Park. She came on in a denim catsuit.
Right.
I mean, this is like 4 or 5 years ago. Love Box it was.
Right.
It was about 8 years ago. She came on, and it was just like mind-blowing.
Yeah. These musicians look so incredible from a point of view of the 1970s in rural Britain. They were just a different world. It might have well been kind of from the moon.
And the really important thing to remember is when they're going on these shows, right? Not everyone had television, so they're not dressing for the millions.
No.
They're dressing for themselves, and that's their image, and that's what Chaka dressing in like almost like a boob tube and flares and hair and all the midriff show.
All suede, yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
It's so out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of, and I think that because they were black and they were on television and they were wearing those outfits, the outfits kind of overtook the fact of it's not just a black woman singing. It's like the overall package. And I just think it's incredible. Because
you couldn't see this in Britain at the time. This is an American show, and the chances of Rufus and Chaka Khan being on Top of the Pops is pretty rare, if at all. So it's only recently I'm discovering this stuff on YouTube and seeing it for what it is. So we'd have to live by the record cover. So you'd have to live, and it was Norman Seeff was the photographer who did a lot of those. He did Cher, he did kind of a lot of the big American acts. He did one of the best pictures of Chaka Khan and Rufus. You'd put the record on and you'd prop the record, the 12-inch record sleeve up, and you just sit there, listen to the music and look at this still image. In a way, that's sort of what got me into photography. All right. So next thing, we're going to move on from Chaka Khan. So this is trying to keep it back to fashion and music combined. Right at the beginning of my career, I used to do my own printing. Oh, really? Yeah, so I'd take a photograph.
I can smell that fluid now.
Nice. Yeah. I would take a photograph, and then you'd spend 3 days in the darkroom trying to print the bloody thing, trying to make it look good. And of course, you were spending it, going 9 o'clock in the morning, you come out at 9 o'clock at night. Well, it's a long time in a darkroom. Yeah. It's a joy in it. And certain photographers live in their darkrooms, because partly they're those sort of people that kind of, enjoy that sort of thing. So I would listen to, and I remember because I'd work in the week for the music papers like the NME and doing portraits for the NME, and then the weekend I'd try and print them up for the following week's release. And so I'm going on Saturday morning, and there's a show called, do you remember Robbie Vincent?
No.
Do you remember Robbie Vincent?
I'd say no, but I probably do.
He was a Capital Radio DJ, and he had a show on Saturday morning where he played jazz funk.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was the whole of that
I do remember.
I never went. So, but and he would play jazz funk, and it was bands like this, so Frankie Beverly and Mays, Joy and Pain, and then other people like Tanya Maria, Come With Me. They
amazing.
were such incredible tracks, and I'd listen to that show, and I would. Joy and
Pain's is one of those amazing tracks that if you're in a car or wherever you are, you ask them to turn the radio up. So you used to listen to that in the dark room. How long were you in the dark room for?
Hours, most of my life in the early 1980s. I'd work for the music magazines in the week, and then we can print up the stuff to hand in on a Monday.
It's really weird when I can actually smell that smell. Really? I used to live with Brad Branson, who was a photographer in the 80s, who sadly passed away, who did the George Michael older album covers and all of that stuff. Yeah. And he used to have his dark room in the flat. Yeah. And forever in there, with red light on. But it just that smell of developing lotion or what fluid, it was just like, I can smell it to this day.
Developer and fix.
Yeah, I can smell it to this day.
It's just fix you can smell.
Is that what it is?
In it, yeah.
Okay, like moving on. We had to. It wouldn't be Nick Knight without going to Gaga.
Well, you're missing one. You're missing one.
Who am I missing?
So that's the Darkroom.
I'm missing. Oh my
God! Sound of the Darkroom.
How can I miss
Sound of the Studio?
How can I miss Sound of the Studio? Mary J. Blige.
Exactly.
The goddess herself.
So a little bit of kind of a preamble for this. When you're in the studio, you have to play, or you play music because you have music that you want to listen to that puts you in the kind of mood. And I used to do, before I do a Dior session, and these sessions are 7 days long, so don't think they're a day. They're 7 days long. So I would make a mixtape. And the 2 weekends before my session, I would ask Charlotte to go away from the house. She'd go off and see her family. And I would sit by myself and I'd go into HMV and I'd buy all the latest records and all the stuff I thought, and all the compilations, the stuff I just bought at random. And I'd listen to them and I'd take the first 30 seconds of each track I like the sound of and put it together. And sometimes it's like 10 seconds. And then they made the most bizarre mixtapes. I'm not going to play you. But they're basically, my idea was, and what worked for me, was that you wouldn't get the same beat. You wouldn't hit into a groove.
You would actually
you'd actually
move
sort of
around
be more inventive, so people would find different things and it'd be more expressive, and then bits that people love, bits people would hate, but it was never very long. So if you hated it, it was only 30 seconds. If you loved it, it was only 30 seconds. But it was all these different sorts of songs. It was a time when you had people like DJ Shadow.
Yeah.
And Fatboy Slim, who were like mixing in those different sounds. I don't know what that genre is called, but you'd have kind of like, you remember the Orb?
Yeah, of course. So basically everyone was sampling. It was the beginning of sampling.
Yeah.
So everyone was sampling other tracks and putting in, and which is modern day music basically, because every album you hear now has got samples on it.
Yeah, well, it was sample galore. Every
So basically what it was like was you going back to when you were a kid and you were taping music off the radio. Like we all used to do when the top 10 came on a Sunday. We'd sit with our recorder and I would tape the show. And no, just the music. Press play, and as soon as they started speaking, cut them off, and then just take the tracks. And I had them on my cassette, which I would play all week.
Yeah, well, it was basically that.
Yeah, that.
And I had this thing which was like
pirating is the word you're looking for there, Nick Knight.
Stealing other people's music. And it had 2 tapes, so you could do tape to tape, and a radio. So you could go from tape to tape to radio, tape to tape, and it had a CD player, so tape to tape. So it's like my early bit of mixing.
Have you still got them?
I have. They're pretty atrocious. I wouldn't probably recommend.
Oh no, it'd be interesting to listen to. Definitely.
But everything was mixed in, from Saint Etienne to the Orb to Bjork to DJ Shadow. DJ Shadow was the best because he was basically doing that in any case.
Yeah, of course.
But that's not what I was going to talk. So that was what I used to think would be a good idea to play in the studio over 7 days. Yeah. So you can imagine what John Galliano thought of that for 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay. But then I worked with Giselle Bundchen, the lovely Giselle Bundchen, who is quite a force to be reckoned with. Giselle Bundchen is not a pushover in any department. And when she came to do her modelling, she said, "Oh no, we're going to listen to this." And she put on Mary J. Blige, Family Affair. Amazing. And we listened to it for 5 days on repeat. Every time she stepped in front of the camera, she'd put it back on and she would just model to Mary J. Blige. And I thought at the end of it, I'm going to hate this track. And I still really love it.
It's an amazing track.
So,
I used to listen to No More Drama. I still do.
Yeah.
It was like every day, like 30 times, 40 times a day, the same track.
Was that a kind of therapy session?
Kind of, it just was where I was at, and I kind of just like, it was going to be the choice of track that I played at my funeral. But let's move on.
She comes out, moving on. So I want to do a threesome with Gaga now, a Gaga triptych, because it cuts on 3 different points. So I'll try and be brief. First one is the music for a fashion show. Yeah. So this is a little story about one of my first meetings with Gaga, or my first encounter with her. I was doing Lee McQueen's fashion show, Plato Atlantis. Yeah. And he decided, we sort of persuaded him after 2 or 3 seasons to do a live broadcast of the show. Yeah. So he'd kind of been a bit reluctant to do it. And then for Plato Atlantis, I said, okay, and we really got into it. So there's 2 mechanical robots that went up and down the catwalk, following models, and they'd turn around and then they'd follow the front row, and then they'd turn back around and follow the model. So it was all set up for this live broadcast, and there was cameras there. And at the time, nobody was doing live broadcasting. Mm-hmm. So we thought, well, how many people are going to come and watch this? So we thought, I don't know. And anything comparable, because we know our fashion shows, any live broadcast comparable probably got about 10, 20,000 maximum. Yeah, so we booked a space for 50,000, I think, with a kind of reserve for another 50 if it went crazy. Anyway, he said to me 2 months before the show, I'm working with this American artist, she might do the soundtrack for the show. And that was it. And then on the day of the show, we were rehearsing, and they did the finale, and the finale was Little Mermaid. So I thought, okay, fine, here we go. And so up comes the show. Thing opens. I'm sitting in the back room with my in Paris, and I've got the computer operators and all the screens and everything up, and with all the different cameras and ready to go and press go live now. And Charlotte's on the phone saying, okay, I've got loads of people around the SHOWstudio. We're all watching this, and they press live, and it was a bit weird. The first image that came through was a bit stuttery and jittery, and then the bloody thing just literally melted. I mean, not physically, but and this poor guy who was controlling it was sweating, and it was like he couldn't get an image to stay on the picture, because what had happened is this American artist that Lee had talked about, never mentioned again, 2 months beforehand, was actually Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And she released Bad Romance at the end of Lee's show as a finale. So it wasn't going to be The Jungle Book or Little Mermaid. It was that. And I think he decided that after hearing Little Mermaid. Didn't tell him, nobody said anything. So she had at the time 6.5 million fans on Twitter, and she tweeted at the beginning of Lee's show, "Going to release my new single."
So it completely crashed.
6 million little monsters went to the stream that could only take maximum 100,000, and it just melted. I mean, we broke the internet, but at the time it didn't feel very clever, and didn't feel like what you wanted to do, because we wanted to get this thing out. So that was my first Gaga fashion moment.
Yeah. What a moment.
Yeah, what a moment. But it did prove something to the fashion world. All the CEOs of all those other companies. So I thought, wait a minute, 6 million people try to come and watch this?
Right.
We're showing it to 300 people? We're missing a trick here. And 6 million young, impressionable kids are going to discover Alexander McQueen.
Exactly.
So, boom.
So there you go, the birth, right?
Yeah. And next season, 70% of London shows were live. It's changed like that. So big moment, but difficult emotionally, because it was Lee's last show as well.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a hard one in that way. And
bless Lee.
Yeah, bless him.
Bless him.
Still
and bless Gaga. Gaga, come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's my boyfriend's obsessed by Gaga.
You want to like these next stories then?
Yeah, he really is. Go on.
So we're going on from fashion show music to what's a staple for a lot of directors and filmmakers is the video.
Yeah.
And this one was born this way. So I'd worked with Gaga. For some reason, we worked together after Bad Romance, but we worked together on the Monster Ball, did all the films for that. Yeah. But then she said, releasing a new album, really, really important album for me. First track, Born This Way. It's the anthem. It's everything. The record company were like super kind of on it and coming. Yeah. This had to break her, to make her kind of huge, because it was a great track as well and resonated with loads of people.
It's such a powerful track.
So I was asked to do the video of it. Filming the video will not go into out of sort of doctor-patient relationship confidentiality, but I think I'm probably safe to talk about the post. So I put in they were so frightened of it being leaked. Yeah. So we couldn't go into a post house. So we were put in a hotel in downtown New York. Yeah. And I went in there and I had my editor, who was, at first time I worked with him, amazing chap called Dustin Robinson, who's a bodybuilder. So he's massive. Yeah. But he edits for Mariah Carey, for J-Lo, Madonna. So he's kind of, he called himself an avid diva. It's because he works with all those women. And so Gaga had asked me to work with him. I never worked with him before. So that's quite a relationship to kind of come to terms with. So we had Dustin, who was in one room, and then we had the post team, the people who are putting us all together in another room, and it was just a conventional hotel bedroom. I don't think it was a suite. It wasn't. It was a bed and like 2 tables we'd pushed to the side. And there were 3 guys in there, 2 of which were also bodybuilders. So there's Loic, who was kind of massive. Yeah. There was David, who I think was just massive in age because I think he was a bodybuilder. And you? Me, Dustin, and then another guy who's kind of regular size called Stefan, and we were in there for 6 weeks.
How much testosterone in one room?
Sorry?
How much testosterone in one room?
A lot.
Jesus Christ. I can imagine spending 6 weeks
locked in a bedroom with 3 bodybuilders.
I've been there, Nick, funnily enough. It sounds like my past.
Well, that's why I mentioned it. I thought you might have some empathy.
Definitely weren't in the post-edit, though, that's for sure.
But we went in there at the beginning, and I looked out the window and it was snowing, and I remember seeing some poor woman fall over and bust her leg, and all the ambulance came. When I came out 6 weeks later, it was blossom on the trees. It changed season.
That's insane.
After a month of being in this place. Because literally you woke up at 8 in the morning, you'd have a quick shower, and then you go down there and start working.
But why did it take so long?
Just because these things take long
They
time.
do take a long time to do a video, right?
And also, we filmed Gaga doing the performance, but a lot of it was just abstract stuff I was creating whilst we were in the post state. So there was one piece of film which I regret so much we never managed to use, which was her walking down this snowy street, or not on her unicorn, at night, and every footprint she made was a different colour. A bit like Michael Jackson.
Amazing,
but every footprint. But we made her completely out of Kentucky Fried Chicken wrappers.
No, really?
Yeah, all in post.
Oh, amazing.
So we were making stuff up. And that's one of the reasons it took so long.
That's why it took so long, right?
It's
so if you were to do a video now for an artist, how long would it take you to do from start to finish?
About 6 months.
About 6
weeks, sorry.
6 weeks.
But sometimes they take a year. I've been on videos.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is insane.
But the thing is,
get paid
I don't think anyone. Yeah, and I don't think anyone really would think about how long it took or the amount of work that went into it when they're watching a video on their phone.
No, I mean, people do work in different ways. I work in the way I work. So I don't storyboard. So I just go and get stuff. And then after in post, I try and make it into a film. And so there's no storyboarding. I sit next to my operator or my computer operator or editor or whoever it is, and we try and invent it at that point.
Is that an old school way, or is that like the Nick Knight way?
That's my way.
The SHOWstudio way. That's why people want to work with SHOWstudio. Because I mean, for that kind of work and that kind of effort to put into something, I mean, I know people that turn videos around in 3 to 4 days.
Yeah, you can do it.
And you can tell it's been turned around in 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because you want to turn around and walk away from it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like on your phone for like 3 seconds. You think, oh, yeah, that looked good.
Yeah.
And and then you get, videos like Born This Way, which are masterpieces. Come on, it's a timeless video.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the first, like the overture of Born This Way. It's her speaking about this.
Yes.
All that sort. All that had to be invented. We were making that stuff
Amazing.
up. I think we did one moment where we actually went back in the studio during that period and shot some more stuff to put back into the video. And we would keep making it. And it got to the point, when they get really, really close, say, okay, Drum and team, we've got to really work hard. Yeah. We'll have to work all the way through the night. Everybody goes, okay, we'll work all the way through the night. And everybody works all the way through the night. And then they say, actually, it's not right yet. So all the way through the night again. And after 3 days, you're working with a team who worked all the way through the night for the last 3 days. So they're totally spaced out.
Yeah, of course they are.
And I have pictures of that room with the guys like kind of across the bed and kind of like, just sort of asleep in the middle of the day. And it turns, it's completely surreal. It's a very, very, very intense time. I swore I'd never do another video after that. I said, that's it. Don't ever want to do this again. Of course, you go back on it.
Of course you do.
I guess it's like giving birth, It's sort of one of those things that, it's very painful at the time.
Are you working with Gaga at the moment?
I'm always working with Gaga. She's doing the Joker, I think, at the moment.
That's right, yeah.
So she's not, I'm not doing it.
Which I can't wait.
I just finished Chromatica Ball with her, which is amazing. I must say she's an extraordinary performer and a really lovely person to work with.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
I've met her a couple of times and each time she's been absolutely adorable.
She's fantastic. It's not fake as well.
No.
And my admiration for her as a performer has gone up and up and up and up. Every time I work with her, I'm more and more impressed. It's incredible.
First time I met her was with at the Brits, and she did that it was just after Lee died, and she went on and played the piano. She dedicated it to Lee McQueen, and I met her that night, and she was insane. She invited us into the dressing room. She was so nice, and just like,
she's one of those rare performers that is actually incredibly conscious of everybody in the room. So when she comes into the studio, she'll clock who everybody is, and when she leaves the studio, she will say goodbye to every single person in that studio, whoever they are. If they've been in the studio, she will thank them.
That's a star.
Gaga, I've worked with her, I can't remember how many times now, but every time she impresses. If I had a session with Gaga tomorrow, I would be so excited. There's always a certain amount of dread before you go into a session. You think, how am I going to do it? But I would be worried and frightened and nervous about it, but I would know that I come with something great.
Yeah.
She always finds it in herself. And she's just can transform herself so amazingly. I'll tell you, I'll move on to the next one after Born This Way.
Yeah, go.
Which is fashion and film.
Yeah.
The one with Tom Ford.
Tom
asked me to do a fashion film for him because he didn't want to do a show. He wanted to release a fashion film instead. And we got Gaga, he asked Gaga to come and do that. And she worked with the track, I Want Your Love, the old Chic track.
Yeah.
And remastered that with Nile Rodgers, I guess. She came down we were shooting in LA, and it actually was very similar to this table. It was a huge white square we constructed in the middle of the studio, and it had this light up kind of catwalk in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it was riffing a little bit off Soul Train. So you had all the guys and the girls sort of waiting down the side, which are all models, and then they'd come up the middle and do their turn, do their kind of movement or whatever it is, but all of course dressed in Tom Ford. And there was that model Mika. There was some great models doing it, and some of the guys are fantastic dancers. They'd also all been given dancing lessons.
Yeah, of course.
Beforehand, so they knew how to do this stuff. But on the first day, Gaga comes down, and everyone's like, "Oh, Gaga's here," and she absolutely didn't disappoint. She literally walked onto that stage and just took it over. You watch the film. She's not doing that much to begin with, but she's just so commanding. It's just her sense of spectacle. It's so cute. And she worked with all of those kids, all of those models, and she really, really imbued it. Very kind of like, come on, we can do this. Let's make it great. Really that sort of kind of real. And she worked and worked and worked, bless her, all the way till like kind of 1 or 2 in the afternoon when she had to go. And then the models, because we stayed doing 2-day shooting, stayed shooting after that, the models all desperately wanted to do it well for her. So they were working so hard.
Amazing.
Because they just wanted to impress her.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have done it,
Forget about Tom Ford all of a sudden. Let's just do it for Gaga.
It was absolutely, they gave it everything for Gaga. And I remember one model who, because they're all, they're dancing in brand new shoes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
And I remember her feet were bleeding. And, literally pouring out, but she, no, I got to do this. I got to do this. I can do it. I can get through this. And it's like, you sure? Yeah, I can do it. And it was all for Gaga.
It's a pretty impressive menu. Yeah. Nick Knight, Lady Gaga and Tom Ford. I mean, come on. Right, let's move on.
Okay, we're nearly coming to the end now.
Nearly coming to the end.
Okay, so this is one most commonly heard track on my playlist.
Before we move on, is it actually the whole track or is it just 30 seconds?
No, I've stopped doing the 30 seconds thing.
Oh, thank God.
Now I play the whole track. So now I make much more conventional playlists of whole songs one after the other. But this is a young artist called Kali Uchis. I don't know if you've come across Kali Uchis.
No, I haven't. So where's Kali Uchis from?
She's from Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought she was Mexican, because it's that kind of LA Mexican scene.
Yeah.
And how kind of music can transport you to different cultures throughout the world.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And as much as kind of in the 1970s, I kind of got a bit obsessed with kind of Black America and, Young, Gifted and Black and all that stuff. It was kind of like, it's a fantasy. As much as going to any film, the music was a fantasy.
100%.
And this was a sort of, a fantasy, because I thought, okay, so this is a young Mexican kid and this is the kind of life. And there's that mixture of kind of very little girly kind of frou-frou pink colours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then very in a sort of kind of womanly kind of thing. And then she's kind of a hard girl, reminded me of skinhead girls from the estate. So everything combined, perfect storm. So I thought it was fun. And I just loved the music. And my assistants, bless them, have had to listen to Kali Uchis almost non-stop. She's a big star now.
She kind of got the touch of Amy about her, Amy Winehouse, which leads us into the next track. But there wasn't really a link because she actually does. When I was watching her thing, I thought, she's got a little bit of Amy about her.
Yeah. But that's an early video. Her look changes, of course, as it does.
Of course, as everyone.
But it gets more and more. And girls love her. When she came to the studio, my assistants at the time, and most of the female members of the staff absolutely were swooning.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and she has that thing with women, and they absolutely love her.
Do you think it's because it's accessible to them in the sense that they can look like her or they can dress like her?
I don't know what it is, but if you watch film of her concerts, it's the girls down the front,
Mad, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of weird because women don't really like women artists. Yeah. When you're, I'm not generalising, but I'm saying when you go to concerts and it's a woman singing, it's either the majority are like little gay fans or, or men. It's never normally like a young woman fan base.
No, this seems to be definitely a young woman.
The demographics changed slightly, haven't they? We've a lot of women love Little Sims and they love all of these sort of gangstery kind of feeling women.
And there's also a kind of power. She's genuinely from Colombia, and I guess
amazing, powerful, right?
Yeah. So, but living in the States, I think she's amazing. And I've listened to her for years.
I'm really glad that you've put me onto her because I'm going to check it out when I get home. Completely.
Yeah, you definitely should. Let's finish, Tony, with regrets. Regrets, I have a few. The people I didn't get to photograph or didn't get to work with.
Oh, so you never ever did Amy?
Never did Amy Winehouse.
Wow.
Never photographed Amy Winehouse. I had a session booked It was one of those Vogue sessions where they get in the sort of, the current singers of the day.
Yeah.
And we had Cat Power, and we had Bat for Lashes, and we had Lily Allen, and we had all the kind of the great singers of that period. And Amy was booked for it, and she didn't turn up on the first day. She didn't turn up on the second day. And I was told it was because she was on her kitchen floor crying because of her boyfriend, which is probably exactly what it was.
Yeah, that's what,
So
that
she
would have
wouldn't come
been
out of
it.
the house.
That would have been it because of Blake, yeah. Another incredible woman.
Yeah.
Another incredible woman. And, that energy just went to the wrong direction. That was it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I met loads of times.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought you
I'm very
liked them.
fortunate to met her and had a few fun times with her.
Right.
I was sober at that point in time. So I kind of got brought in at one point to meet her to kind of have that conversation, which that conversation never happened because it just turned into it was a fun evening instead of that conversation. Yeah. But when you're sober and someone asks you to have that conversation with someone who's not sober, you have to play it really. You can't just go to say right, I want to, and you just have to go with it. And if you think they need that conversation at that point in time, then that conversation is had. But it was never had that conversation.
You got the impression that she wasn't going to have that conversation.
No, she didn't want that conversation, and she at that point when I was brought in she was having fun.
Yeah.
She thought she was having fun.
Yeah.
What a shame you never met her.
Yeah, well, it's a shame, and I've been in love with her music ever since.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, really, really. And the track I've put here is Valerie. She sings kind of basically, John Person. It just delivery is so great.
It's such a genius track, and it's such an uplifting track. And I love Mark as well. I think Mark Ronson at that point in time was at his best, and that whole album was really genius. Yeah, of getting other people to other people's tracks. I mean, where did that come from? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Kali Uchis and Amy Winehouse have been sort of, in my sort of, because when you work, people say, okay, come up with an idea for our campaign, come up with an idea for a video. Yeah. So you have to find your ideas somewhere, and I find them when I'm driving. Yeah. So I tend to drive, because do you drive?
No, you're mad. Okay.
So driving is a funny thing to your brain, because of course you've got to be hyper aware. So you've got to be looking ahead of you, looking behind you.
I have ADHD.
Et cetera, et cetera.
I don't have that attention span.
Right. Well, that's a weird thing about driving, that you have to be attentive for hours on end. So your brain goes into this funny thing where your sort of conscious brain is making all decisions of not, crash and driving properly and all those sorts of things. And your sort of semi-conscious brain, or your creative part of your brain, is left therefore much freer. So it's a really good way of coming up with ideas, because you're not, if somebody says you come up with an idea, you can't think an idea. You have to kind of let all the ingredients make one. So I get it when I'm driving. And then the other thing about driving is you get the forces on your body, the G-forces of turning the car or driving fast or slowly or whatever it is. But there's a sort of physical thing to it. So I actually find it's really good. I used to drive around London at night just to come up with ideas, just to think. And I would always listen to Amy Winehouse or Kali Uchis. Yeah. So.
It's really powerful women. And it's like, if I didn't know your wife, Charlotte...
Yeah.
Right, I would think she'd have a gold tooth and she'd have like big gold hoop earrings. And
she just dresses dapper.
I don't think she was like a bit of a banshee girl, but she, it's they're really strong choices of imagery, like. That, Amy, that forget the beehive, forget that look, but the energy of what she brought to the table was really poignant at that point in time. And it's like the same with this Kali Uchis, right? Just from watching that video and seeing the way she is, it's the energy that's in them. It's something quite unique when you meet women like that. Yeah. Or you meet anyone. It's not just destined to women. But when you meet people, there's certain people that walk into a room and have that power.
Yeah. Well, that's the people that I guess in the end become performers. They use that power, and they use it to kind of
good performers. They become good performers.
Yeah. But everybody, you go right back to the beginning of this. We're talking about the Skinhead girl dancing to Desmond Dekker. Go all the way through. There's a certain admiration I have for these powerful women.
But all of those things also, going back to the beginning with Desmond Dekker, are still relevant today.
Yeah.
They're still relevant. They're not like tracks that no one's ever heard of. People, as soon as they hear their track, they automatically know what that is. Yeah. And that's not a generational thing of our age group. I know kids that love that track. You know, so you know, they're all of the things that you've chosen in this 11 different tracks and bits of film and moments in time are all really relevant still today, which is kind of mad.
Yeah, well, I didn't think about it.
No, there is. There are all of them. There's nothing on here that I would think, oh God, that's boring. Which is kind of quite weird for me to find anything. Like, I always, if I'm listening to 11 pieces of music, I'm going to find at least 5 of them boring. And I haven't today.
Well, I'm very pleased.
No, they're all really relevant. And I kind of just think, the beauty of this podcast and what we're doing here is to get to know people a little bit better. And the way you find out what people really like is by their music choices.
Yeah, that's why sometimes it's a bit personal.
Yeah, and it has to be personal. Yeah. If I was to say to you, do you actually listen to music on your headphones or do you just listen to music in the car?
I never use headphones.
Okay, nor do I actually, apart from when I'm working. But what is the one track, and forget that list, and don't think about it, that you're listening to right now?
I can't remember its bloody name, Tony. It's an old soul track.
It's an old soul track.
It's an old soul track, and it's about somebody who's fooling himself that the woman's in love with. It's something about the Shy Lights, something like that.
Okay.
I just can't remember the name of the track.
Okay.
I can get it. I'll put it on the playlist for you. But that's the one I come in. It's number 2 on track. Bobby Gillespie did me a whole bunch of a whole compilation of soul tracks.
Yeah.
And I think it's the Shy Lights.
Okay.
It's not Have You Seen It?
And it's one that you put on all the time.
I put on all the time.
Amazing.
Sorry.
Well, thank you, Nick.
My pleasure.
Thank you, the gaffer of SHOWstudio. Finally got you in here. Amazing list. An amazing list. And long may you reign.
Well, thank you, Tony. Lovely to speak to you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.